Welcome back, everyone, to the Late Night Review. And tonight I'm talking about one of my very favorite movies of all time. As usual, usually I talk about movies that I like on my Late Night Review show, and tonight is definitely no exception. I adore this movie, and it's Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. And I think this is really, really a good movie. I actually think it's a classic. I think it's somewhat underrated. I have heard people praise it some, but I still think it's kind of overrated. And I think Jason Scott Lee does a really good job portraying Bruce Lee. And it's one of my favorite movies. It's got a good pace, it's got drama, good acting. There's not a bad performance in this movie. I think everybody does their job well and portrays their characters well. I really like this movie a lot. And I think Jason Scott Lee actually does look like Bruce Lee. Not a lot, but I think he does look like him. He had a great build in this movie. He had the style, the character. And I think that Jason Scott Lee's performance was really, really good. I think it's actually the best performance I've ever seen of someone portraying Bruce Lee. And I know that's a lot, but I think he brought the right spirit, the right attitude to the role. I think his charisma. I don't think I've seen other actors who look like Bruce Lee a little bit more than Jason Scott Lee for sure, but I do think he looked like him. But I don't think I've ever seen anyone play Bruce Lee with as much charisma and character as Jason Scott Lee. I think he did a great job. I think he kind of embodied Bruce Lee in this film and just pulled it off really, really well. All around, I think the film is really good. There's a few things, they got wrong. I'm not here to critique everything they got wrong. I think they got a lot right. And, they have artistic license in movies. But their first dinner, I believe their first date between Bruce Lee and Linda Lee when they met was at the Space Needle, not in California, not in San Francisco. It was in the Space Needle. And that's where I grew up. I was born in Seattle. I was born in Renton. Renton, Washington's right next to Seattle, Washington. I know the area. They were in the Space Needle. I believe that's where they had their first date. Met at the University of Washington. Bruce Lee spent a lot of time at Lake Washington. I know that area well. It's There's certain things they didn't get right, but they got a lot right. Bruce Lee did not get his back injury by getting kicked in the spine or in the back like in the movie. He got it working out. And I mean, in real life, he was challenged, and he, like on the set of Enter the Dragon, he was challenged to fights, and he beat them all. He was the best. They tried to come up to him and challenge him when he was making Enter the Dragon, and he would beat them all. But that in the movie where he fought the one martial artist that challenged him because he was teaching Westerners and teaching other people that they didn't want him to teach, and they thought he was kind of corrupting the styles. He's borrowing from all different styles, which was revolutionary and awesome. Thank goodness he did that. Bruce Lee is really the father, or one of the fathers or pioneers of MMA. Really, he really, really is. But so in real life, the person who challenged him, the fight didn't. Once the fight started, Bruce Lee had the upper hand, and he chased him around and made him give up. In the movie, he got kicked in the back after he won the fight, and that's why he went to the hospital. But that's not what happened in real life. He injured himself doing good mornings, back exercises, good mornings, without proper warm up, and lifting a weight that's probably too heavy. Something popped, hurt him, hurt his lower disc, really hurt him a lot. And he was in the hospital for months for that reason. And I think the doctor told him he was probably never going to practice martial arts again. But actually, after he recovered, he became even better than before. He became a better martial artist than before, but he always lived with lower back pain after that. Always lived with lower back pain after that. Unfortunately, that was a tragic accident, and it's just something that lasted the rest of his life. But during the time he was hurt, like in the movie, he did study more. He did focus on the martial arts and tried to make his mind and his knowledge of the martial arts and philosophy, which he was great at that. That's what he took. That was one of the things he took at school. Actually, Bruce Lee also thought about becoming a pharmacist too when he went to school at the University of Washington. And he trained everybody. He was open to training people of all races, all cultures, and all backgrounds. Jesse Glover was his first student, I believe, when he was in the United States. One of his first, or his first student, I believe. Jesse Glover was his first student. African American. Bruce Lee taught whites, blacks, Latinos, everybody. When he was in China, he experienced discrimination. I'm kind of doing a biography of Bruce Lee. I'm supposed to be talking about Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. I'm kind of going off like in a biography. But he experienced discrimination when he was in China before he came to the United States because he had a little German blood on his mother's side. His mother was Eurasian. She had some German blood. So a lot of the Chinese kids didn't want to practice martial arts with him, and certain people didn't want to teach him, but Yip Man taught him, became his kung fu master. He learned so much. Then, of course, later he moved to the States and shared it with so many people, and what a legacy. But the movie, start talking about Bruce Lee, I go off and want to talk more about his life. But yeah, Bruce Lee was awesome. And I think Jason Scott Lee captured his character, his spirit in the movie. I thought he brought a lot to the role. Athleticism, style, character, the dialogue in here. It's a drama too. It's got action. And one of the scenes that makes me misty-eyed, every time I see it, is kind of the reconciliation between Linda Lee and her mother. Her mother, who was, in the movie, was, and I don't know how. See, I don't know everything about what happened in real life, but in the movie they had a reconciliation because she did not want him to go out with an Asian guy, didn't want her to marry an Asian guy, didn't want her to be with an Asian person at all. And then later when they had their child, Brandon, she she came and she reconciled with her daughter. She said she was sorry. And one moment that always kind of gets to me emotionally and makes me sad is when Bruce Lee, Jason Scott Lee says, "Brandon, only you could have done this. Only you could have done this, Brandon." When they had the reconciliation, it's a really touching scene. She came to visit him and reunite with her daughter and now her grandchild and Bruce Lee. And that, to me, that was a really touching scene. I don't know how true to life it was, but it touched me a lot. This movie, I think, is really, really a good movie. It's got good action. It's got a great story because it's about Bruce Lee, but it's touching too. It's sad. I was excited by many parts, and then Bruce Lee, the bully, came over to him and picked on him, and then Bruce Lee taught him a lesson, and then later he became a student along with his friends. And Robert Wagner is in here, plays an agent who gets Bruce Lee into film. And Bruce Lee, they he was supposed to do kung fu, the warrior, the kung fu. He was supposed to do that. It was written for him. He was supposed to do it. And of course, the discrimination, they didn't choose him because he's Asian. He wasn't white. They chose David Carradine. And David Carradine did a good job, but Bruce Lee, wow, he would have been so awesome in that role. And but he was bigger than television. Bruce Lee. And then after the discrimination, of course, he went to China, became a huge megastar over there, and then later with Enter the Dragon. And the movie goes through that. The reason I'm talking about it is because the movie shows you this. It doesn't get every detail right, but it shows you it. And the Green Hornet was called the Kato Show in China, I believe, because Bruce Lee was so popular and so awesome in the role. Even on YouTube now, I'll go back and watch. It's just amazing to see him in the Green Hornet knowing that's Bruce Lee, and later he would explode into this legend later. Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, is exciting. It's got great martial arts. I think it's for a movie that's a biographical type of movie based on a true story. It's got good martial arts in here. I think the martial arts in here stack up against any martial arts movie. I think it's really exciting and good and more realistic than some of the other martial arts movies. Even though it's not terribly realistic, it's more realistic than a lot of the ones I've seen. And Sven Ole Thorsen is in here. There's a great scene. I don't know how true it was. I think it is kind of a symbol of Bruce's struggle, his struggle with with a lot with a lot of negativity, a lot of different things that were kind of against him, and he was overcoming it. And that fight that he had, I think there's a lot of symbolism in that fight. Everyone has their opinion, I think, to what things mean, but Sven Ole Thorsen played that big dark character in the ancient Asian armor that Bruce Lee fought in the dream. Sven Ole Thorsen was in Conan with the hammer, the big hammer. He was in Conan the Destroyer. He played one of the Queen's guards. He was in Red Sonja. He was in so much. Raw Deal, Red Heat, On Deadly Ground. He was in just so many, multiple movies. The Running Man, and great bodybuilder. And John Milius once called him like the Jack LaLanne of Scandinavia. So huge over there, power lifter, strong man, I should say. And power lifter, I think. I forgot exactly, but bodybuilder, strong man. Sven Ole Thorsen, huge, different build than Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne was ripped, cut, lean. Sven Ole Thorsen's huge, like a bodybuilder build and strong man. And I have to say also that this is a sad scene. This is a dream slash nightmare sequence scene that's really sad. It's really emotional because we know what happens to Bruce Lee shortly after this. He's dead. Later on, Brandon Lee tragically dies as a young adult while making the movie The Crow. So it really, really is powerful. I think personally that it's one of the greatest dream slash nightmare sequences that I've ever seen. Very, very powerful, extremely powerful. And I can't say enough about the scene in the dream, in this nightmare, this representation. To me, I have my own interpretation about it. Not sure if Bruce Lee had a nightmare like this in real life. Maybe he did. Who knows? There's a documentary about the Curse of the Dragon. So to me, this demon character that Sven Ole Thorsen is playing with this ancient Asian armor, this is a character, it's kind of like a composite character that represents a curse, the angel of death, this dark force that's coming for Bruce Lee. And he, in the dream, when you see it, this nightmare, he defeats this character and temporarily holds off this curse, holds off this death temporarily. He preserves himself for a short period of time, and he preserves Brandon for a while until his death later as a young adult. So this it's a very powerful scene. I think it's pretty gut wrenching because we know how things end up. Powerful, sad. It's exciting. It's a really good fight scene. It's very well done. Really, this is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. But there's some others too. There's some others that I really like. The challenge match and then the return challenge match in the boxing ring. I like I said, the reconciliation scene between Linda Lee and her mother and Bruce Lee and the baby Brandon, their firstborn. And then, of course, Shannon Lee later was born. And I think that was such a powerful, powerful scene of the reconciliation. But this scene here, I think it just all in all, in its totality, with not only the excitement, the martial arts, the action, the rain, the way it's shot, the lighting and everything, it's also a gut punch. It's also sad. But he temporarily defeats this character that represents a curse, I think, a demon, a curse, and he temporarily holds off death for himself and then holds off death for a while for Brandon. Because in the movie, in the scene here, you see Brandon saying, "Daddy, stop him. Daddy, stop him," like that, and he does. And it just, I get misty eyed during this scene too. I really do. I think it's an amazing sequence. Fantastic. Like I said, it's one of the best dream slash nightmare sequences that I've ever seen of all time. And if you haven't seen this movie, oh, please watch it, especially if you're a Bruce Lee fan, or if you like martial arts and you've never seen this movie, and you like dramas and true stories, inspired by true stories. I would highly recommend this. Very, very great sequence and a great film. I think is really a good movie. It's one of my, I really adore the movie. I like it. It touches me. All the rewatchability is very, very high for me. Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, is one of my favorite movies. I think everyone in here does a good acting job. Uh, Jason Scott Lee really, really is obviously the spotlight because he's playing Bruce Lee. But everyone in here really comes to life from the actors that are portraying him. Bruce Lee, Linda Lee, everyone, Bruce Lee's family, and it just his father was a opera singer and an actor, and Bruce Lee was in 20 films, I believe, before he made a movie as an adult, and he had a pretty extensive child acting career. It was pretty impressive when you look at his biography. When he was young, he started out as a child actor. And even then, I mean, you could see that spark. You can see some of these films on YouTube, and you can see Bruce Lee as that personality he had as a kid. And I've watched some of those. Those are really interesting just to see someone that you know would be a legend later, and you could see that character and that style and that bravado and everything coming out as a kid. And it's Shining Light. There was a movie called The Guiding Light. It might have been Guiding Light, and it was interesting, sad. Bruce Lee played an orphan, I believe, and there was another movie called The Orphan as well, and Bruce Lee was playing kind of like a rebel without a cause, James Dean type, and it was rather popular. I hope I'm getting the name right, The Orphan, but I was more interested in the martial arts history and side of Bruce Lee's life rather than his early filmography, but both are more than worth exploring. They're both fascinating. Love Bruce Lee. I like the portrayal. I like the portrayal by Jason Scott Lee. I think it's the best portrayal of Bruce Lee that I've ever seen, personally, in my opinion. If you haven't seen Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, I highly recommend it. It's good. It really is good. I think you'll like it if you like martial arts movies, biographical movies, stories that are based in real life and true events, true people that you're interested in. I think you'll really like Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. Check it out. This has been the Late Night Review. Please like and subscribe and share this video with others so they can see this kind of content. Hit the thumbs up button, and have a good night, everybody. Take care.